Chapter 1, The Finder's Fee. Captain Derek Holloway had never believed in luck until he found a starship floating dead in the scrap lanes of the outer reach. Completely unclaimed and not even flagged as salvage. He stood on the observation deck of the way station, staring through the reinforced viewport at the vessel that had somehow escaped every scanner sweep, every salvage drone, and every opportunistic pirate in the sector. The ship hung there like a forgotten relic, her hull plating oxidized to a mottled brown-gray that made her blend perfectly with the asteroid debris field behind her. She was ugly, boxy, and absolutely perfect. "Registry search complete," the station AI announced in that annoyingly cheerful tone. "Vessel designation, Wandering Providence. Last registered owner deceased. No living heirs, no outstanding liens, no salvage claims filed. Under Frontier Commerce Code Section 19B, vessel is eligible for finder's claim." Derek's heart hammered against his ribs. He'd spent the last 6 years scraping together credits for his own ship, taking every dangerous merc job, every milk run, every humiliating bodyguard gig for spoiled colony brats. He'd saved 43,000 credits, enough for a wrecked hauler with a reactor that wheezed like an asthmatic on a good day. But this was free. He pulled up his comm unit and recorded the official claim, his voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. Derek Holloway, independent contractor, license 7 Alpha Whisper 2, filing finder's claim on vessel Wandering Providence. Current position outer reach marker 318. Timestamp registered. The station AI chirped its acknowledgement. Claim filed. Inspection period begins now. You have 96 hours to document condition and complete ownership transfer. Derek was already running toward the dock. The inside of the Wandering Providence smelled like old coffee and recycled air, with a hint of something that might have been someone's lunch 3 months ago. Derek picked his way through the main corridor, his helmet light cutting through the darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on as the ship's auxiliary power recognized his presence, casting everything in a sickly amber glow. The bridge was a disaster, coffee cups fossilized on every surface. A jacket hung over the captain's chair. Charts and data tablets scattered across the navigation console like someone had just stepped out for a bathroom break and never came back. But the ship herself was amazing. Derek ran his hands over the control panels, checking readouts on his portable scanner. The bones were good, really good. Stellar Forge hull construction, reinforced frame, modular systems that practically begged for upgrades. She was maybe 20 years old, obsolete by corporate fleet standards, but for an independent operator, she was a diamond covered in dirt. Derek grinned so hard his face hurt. Then he pulled up his comm and made the call he'd been planning for years. "This better be important, Holloway. I'm elbow-deep in a thruster assembly that some moron tried to fix with duct tape and a prayer." "Tommy," Derek couldn't keep the excitement out of his voice. "Remember how we always said if I ever got my own ship, you'd be my engineer?" Thomas Reeves, certified genius and Derek's best friend since their academy days, groaned through the comm. "You finally bought that trash hauler you've been eyeing, the one held together with rust and optimism." "Better, I found one. She's mine, Tommy, free and clear. Frontier finder's claim." The silence stretched for 3 full seconds. "Free. Completely unclaimed, just floating in the outer reach, and Tommy, she's got good bones. Stellar Forge construction, modular systems, plenty of space for upgrades." "What's the catch?" Derek looked around the bridge, at the coffee cups and the blinking red indicators on half the systems. "She needs a lot of work." "How much work are we talking?" "Everything work, but here's the thing." Derek took a breath, knowing he was about to make the pitch of his life. "I've got 43,000 credits saved up. I was going to buy a ship, but now I don't have to. So that's 43,000 credits I can pump straight into upgrades. I want the fastest fusion drives money can buy, top-tier defense shields, weapons that'll make pirates think twice. The works, Derek, that's barely enough for one of those things, let alone all of them." "I know. So here's my offer." Derek sat down in the captain's chair, ignoring the protesting squeak of old hydraulics. "You do the work, you make this ship into something special. And I'll give you 20% of every job I take for the next 5 years. 20%. Are you insane? Probably. But I just got my emergency response delivery license approved yesterday." "You know what that means?" Tommy whistled low through the comm. "You can pull from emergency depots without filing transit paperwork. No customs holds, no inspection delays, no bureaucratic nonsense. That's fast credits, Derek. Exactly. Colony needs medical supplies during a quarantine. I grab and go. Station has a reactor leak and needs coolant. I'm already on the way. Every emergency in 3 sectors becomes my paycheck, and I can undercut every other hauler because I don't waste time on forms. Derek leaned forward. I'm going to make a killing, Tommy. And you get 20% of it, plus I'll cover all your expenses while you work on her. What's she look like? Derek glanced around the dim bridge. Like something died in here. I mean on the outside, genius? Oh, she's ugly, really ugly. Oxidized hull plating, mismatched panels, looks like she's held together with hope and bad decisions. And you want to keep that look? Absolutely. I want her to look like she's not worth boarding or shooting. But underneath, Derek's grin returned. I want her to be a wolf in sheep's clothing, or more like a grizzly bear. Can you do it? The silence stretched again. Derek could practically hear Tommy's brain working through the logistics, the calculations, the sheer audacity of trying to cram top-tier systems into an old hauler while maintaining her junkyard aesthetic. I want 25%, Tommy finally said. 22, 24, and I'll throw in some creative modifications that aren't in the standard catalogs. Derek laughed. Deal. How soon can you get to the outer reach? I can catch a transport tomorrow morning, but Derek, Tommy's voice turned serious. This had better be worth it. I'm walking away from a steady job for this. Tommy, when have I ever steered you wrong? There was that time on Arcturus Station when you said the bar fight would be fun. We survived. I had 3 broken ribs, but we survived with style, Derek stood up, looking around his new ship with a possessive pride, already taking root in his chest. Trust me on this one, this ship, she's going to be legendary. She got a name, Wandering Providence, Tommy snorted. That's terrible. I know, I'm keeping it anyway. Seems like tempting fate to change it now. 30 hours later, Derek watched Tommy Reeves climb through the airlock. Tool bag slung over his shoulder, and a critical expression already forming on his face. Tommy was shorter than Derek, stockier, with the kind of hands that always had grease under the fingernails, and a mind that could strip down a fusion reactor blindfolded. He took exactly 5 steps into the corridor before stopping dead. Oh, this is worse than you described. Wait until you see the engine room. There's a coffee cup welded to the wall. Derek looked where Tommy was pointing. Sure enough, some previous owner had apparently spilled coffee down the wall plating, and the combination of heat and time had fused the ceramic to the metal. Adds character, adds tetanus. Tommy set down his bag and pulled out a scanner, immediately starting to take readings. Okay, give me the full tour, and I mean everything. I need to know every problem before I can start planning solutions. They spent the next 3 hours going through the ship from top to bottom. Tommy took notes on his data tablet, occasionally muttering things like absolutely not, who designed this, and I'm going to need more coffee. When they finally returned to the bridge, Tommy dropped into the co-pilot's chair and stared at his tablet like it had personally offended him. Well, Derek prompted, she's a disaster. But, Tommy admitted grudgingly, you weren't lying about the bones. The frame is solid. The hull integrity is actually pretty good once you get past the cosmetic damage. And whoever built her knew what they were doing with the modular design. I can work with this. So you're in? Tommy looked up, and despite the exhaustion already evident in his eyes, he was grinning. I'm in, but we're doing this my way. I'm going to source parts from 6 different suppliers, use some gray market contacts for the weapons systems, and probably violate a few manufacturer warranties. You good with that? As long as she flies fast and hits hard, I don't care if you build her out of stolen shopping carts. Deal. Tommy stood and offered his hand. Derek shook it firmly, sealing a partnership that would either make them both rich or get them both killed. When do we start? Derek asked. Tommy pulled a data chip from his pocket and tossed it to Derek. I'm starting now. You're going to the trading hub on Titus Station with that chip. It's got my parts list. Start buying. I'll start stripping out all the garbage systems we don't need. Derek caught the chip and headed for the airlock, already planning his route to Titus Station. Behind him, he heard Tommy's voice echoing through the corridor. Hey, Derek. Yeah, this is going to be fun. Derek smiled, sealing his helmet as the airlock cycled. Yeah, Tommy. It really is. Chapter 2, Lipstick on a War Pig. Tommy Reeves had been installing new systems for 6 weeks when he realized he'd accidentally built something that could probably take on a frigate. So here's the thing, Tommy said, wiping grease off his hands as Derek inspected the bridge's new control panels. I might have gotten a little carried away. Derek looked up from the tactical display, which now had so many targeting options, it looked like a Christmas tree designed by a paranoid weapons manufacturer. Carried away how? Tommy scratched his head, leaving a new streak of oil in his hair. Remember how you wanted good weapons? Well, I was sourcing parts from this guy on Titus Station, right? And he had these military surplus plasma cannons from a scrap destroyer, real cheap because the mounting brackets were damaged. Okay, so I fixed the brackets. Took me 3 days and some creative welding, but I got them working. Then I figured, well, if we've got plasma cannons, we might as well have the targeting computer to run them properly. Found one of those at a surplus auction, barely used. Derek's eyes narrowed. Tommy, how many plasma cannons did you install? 4, 2 dorsal, 2 ventral. Full rotation capability. Tommy held up his hands defensively. But wait, it gets better. The targeting computer had integration ports for missile systems. And I found these beautiful Lancer 5 missile pods that some idiot was selling for parts because he didn't know how to recalibrate them. How many missiles? 24 tubes. 12 port, 12 starboard. Tommy grinned like a kid showing off a straighter report card. Plus I installed a railgun in the nose, just a small one. For precision work. Derek stared at his friend. Tommy, we're a cargo hauler. We're a cargo hauler that nobody will ever try to hijack. Tommy pulled up a schematic on the main display. Look, I kept everything modular like you wanted. All the weapons systems retract into concealed housings. From the outside, she still looks like the same rusty bucket we found. But when you need them, boom, instant warship. Despite himself, Derek felt a grin spreading across his face. What about the engines? Oh, you're going to love this. Tommy practically bounced on his heels as he led Derek down to the engine room. I got us a Helios 7 fusion drive. Brand new, still in the factory casing. Some corporate fleet ordered 50 of them, went bankrupt before delivery, and the manufacturer was liquidating inventory. The engine room had been transformed. Where before there had been a wheezing reactor that looked like it might explode if someone sneezed near it. Now there was a gleaming fusion core that hummed with barely contained power. The entire space had been stripped, cleaned, and rebuilt with the kind of precision that made Derek realize his friend was even better at this than he'd thought. She'll hit .8 light speed in normal space, Tommy continued, running his hand lovingly along the reactor housing. Full jump capability for hyperspace lanes, obviously. But here's the fun part. I overclocked the power distribution system. Is that safe? Probably. The point is, we can divert engine power to shields or weapons on the fly. Or we can dump everything into the engines and outrun pretty much anything short of a military interceptor. Tommy pulled up a control panel. I also installed a second, smaller fusion cell as a backup. If the main reactor ever goes down, we've got emergency power for life support, basic maneuvering, and one good weapons volley. Derek shook his head in amazement. What about the shields? Ah, the shields. Tommy's grin somehow got wider. I splurged a little on those. We've got Titan-class defensive barriers, military grade. They're designed for ships 3 times our size, which means on the wandering Providence, they're borderline excessive. We could probably fly through a meteor storm and come out without a scratch. How much did all this cost? Tommy pulled out his data tablet and showed Derek the running total. Derek's eyes widened, then relaxed as he saw the final number. You came in under budget. Barely, but I saved money by doing all the installation myself and sourcing parts creatively. Also, I may have traded some custom modifications to a parts dealer in exchange for the shield generators. What kind of modifications? His son wanted his racing shuttle to go faster. I made it go faster, everybody wins. Derek clapped Tommy on the shoulder. You're a miracle worker, when do we test her? Right now if you want. I've spent the last 3 days running diagnostics. Everything checks out. She's ready to fly. They took the wandering Providence out of dock an hour later, Derek in the captain's chair and Tommy at the engineering station. The ship handled like a dream, responding to the slightest touch on the controls with a precision that made Derek's heart sing. All systems nominal, Tommy called out, monitoring his displays. Reactor output steady, shield generators online. Weapon systems armed but retracted. Derek pushed the throttle forward gently, feeling the fusion drive respond with a smooth acceleration that pressed him back into his seat. The asteroid field of the outer reach spread before them, chunks of rock tumbling through space in a deadly ballet. Let's see what she can do, Derek said, and opened up the throttle. The wandering Providence shot forward like a bullet, the stars stretching into lines as they hit .5 light speed. Derek wove between asteroids with a precision he'd never had in his old rental ships, the improved maneuvering thrusters letting him dance through gaps that would have been suicide attempts before. Engine temp nominal, Tommy shouted over the roar of acceleration. Power distribution optimal. Derek, she's barely breaking a sweat. Derek laughed, pure joy flooding through him as he threw the ship into a barrel roll around a particularly large asteroid. How's the structural integrity? Solid as bedrock, the inertial dampeners are handling this perfectly. They were halfway through a particularly dense cluster when the proximity alarm screamed. Contact, Tommy yelled. 3 ships closing fast. Configuration matches Kurathi raider pattern. Derek's joy evaporated, replaced by cold calculation. The Kurathi were a species of squat, 6-limbed pirates who had been terrorizing the outer reach for months. They traveled in packs, relied on overwhelming numbers, and had a nasty habit of spacing anyone who resisted. 3 Kurathi interceptors dropped out of hyperspace directly in their path, their angular hulls bristling with weapons. Derek's comm crackled to life with a transmission in heavily accented standard. Human vessel, cut engines and prepare for boarding. Resist and we will crack your hull like an egg and suck out the insides. Tommy looked at Derek. Derek looked at Tommy. We should probably run, Tommy said. Or, Derek said slowly, we could test the weapon systems. Derek, we're a cargo ship. Tommy, we're a cargo ship with 4 plasma cannons, 24 missiles, and a railgun. Derek's hands moved across the tactical controls, bringing weapons online. All along the wandering Providence's hull, concealed panels slid open, revealing the teeth hidden beneath. I think it's time we see if your installations work as advertised. The Kurathi ships paused, clearly confused by the sudden appearance of military-grade weapons on what had appeared to be a helpless freighter. Derek opened a comm channel. Kurathi vessels, this is Captain Derek Holloway of the Wandering Providence. I'm going to give you one chance to turn around and leave. Otherwise, things are going to get educational for all of us. The lead Kurathi ship's response was to fire a warning shot that splashed harmlessly against their shields. Shields holding at 98%, Tommy reported. That didn't even tickle. Their mistake. Derek activated the firing solution. Let's start with something subtle. The railgun spoke once, a hypervelocity round that covered the distance between ships in a fraction of a second. It punched through the lead Kurathi ship's shields like they were tissue paper and cored through their engine section. The raider went dark, tumbling away with atmosphere venting from the exit wound. The other 2 Kurathi ships immediately changed tactics, splitting up and coming at the wandering Providence from different angles. Derek threw the ship into evasive maneuvers, the fusion drive responding instantly to his commands. Missile lock acquired, Tommy called out. Firing solution ready. Light them up. 6 missiles launched from the starboard tubes, their engines flaring bright against the darkness. The Kurathi ships tried to evade, but the Lancer 5s were faster. The missiles corkscrewed through space, point defense fire from the raiders barely scratching them before they impacted. Both Kurathi ships bloomed into expanding fireballs. Silence settled over the bridge. Derek and Tommy stared at the empty space where 3 pirate ships had been 30 seconds ago. So, Tommy said quietly, the weapons work. Yeah. Derek powered down the weapon systems, watching the concealed panels slide closed again. They really do. Tommy leaned back in his chair, looking slightly stunned. Derek, we need to talk about something. What's up? I've been thinking about this for a while now. These past 6 weeks working on the Providence, making her into something special. Tommy turned to face Derek directly. I don't want to go back to fixing other people's ships. I want to stay. Full-time crew member, I want to see what we can do with this thing. Derek felt warmth bloom in his chest. Tommy, you know the job's dangerous, right? We just got into a firefight within an hour of leaving dock. And we won in about 30 seconds because I built this ship right, Tommy grinned. Besides, someone needs to keep the reactor running and make sure you don't blow us up trying to hot rod the engines during a chase. What about the profit split? Let's bump it to 25%. That's fair for a full crew member, plus I'll need an operational budget for maintenance and repairs. Tommy crossed his arms. But I'm not just the engineer. I'm the chief engineer of the Wandering Providence. That means I get final say on all mechanical systems and modifications. Derek stood and offered his hand. Deal. Welcome to the crew, Chief Engineer Reeves. Tommy shook firmly. then looked around the bridge with a satisfied expression. "So what now, Captain?" Derek pulled up the emergency contract listings on his display. Already there were requests pinging from 3 different stations, all needing fast delivery of critical supplies. Now we start making money. And Tommy, yeah, thanks for building us a masterpiece, Tommy smiled. Just wait until you see what I can do with a proper maintenance budget. Chapter 3. The Learning Curve. Derek Holloway discovered he was an idiot approximately 3 hours into his first official emergency delivery, when he opened the cargo bay to load medical supplies and saw that the space was completely empty, except for Tommy's tool collection and a disturbing amount of coffee-stained diagnostic equipment. "Tommy," Derek shouted through the ship's internal comm, "where's all our cargo gear?" Tommy's voice crackled back from engineering. "What cargo gear? You know, cargo straps, loading equipment. Those magnetic clamps for securing containers." Derek stared at the cavernous empty bay. "Basic hauling stuff? A long pause. "I may have forgotten we're actually supposed to carry cargo. I was focused on the weapons and engines." Derek closed his eyes and counted to 10. "We're cargo haulers." "Yes, I'm very aware of that. I see the problem now." The emergency depot manager, a tired-looking woman named Patricia Grant, appeared at the loading ramp with a hover pallet stacked with medical supply containers. She took one look at the empty bay and raised an eyebrow. "First run? Is it that obvious?" Derek asked. "You'd be amazed how many new haulers show up without basic equipment." Patricia gestured to a supply locker near the depot entrance. "I can loan you some straps and clamps. Just bring them back when you're done. You're a lifesaver. Honey, you're the one saving lives. Colony on Bridger's World has an outbreak of Tarsian flu. They need these antivirals in the next 16 hours or people start dying." She handed him a data chip. "Coordinates, security codes, contact information. The depot is authorized to release these supplies under your emergency response delivery license." Derek took the chip and spent the next 20 minutes figuring out how cargo straps actually worked, while Tommy provided unhelpful commentary from the bridge. By the time they'd secured the medical containers, Derek's shoulders ached, and he developed a new appreciation for professional loading crews. "All set?" Tommy asked as Derek collapsed into the captain's chair. "Just fly the ship. I need a minute to recover my dignity." Tommy initiated the departure sequence, the wandering Providence lifting smoothly from the depot's landing pad. Coordinates locked in. "Jump to hyperspace in 3 minutes." Tommy pulled up a display showing their route. "Bridger's World is in the Talbot sector, pretty remote. 8-hour jump, then another hour of normal space travel to reach the colony. Should be straightforward then." Derek leaned back, finally allowing himself to relax. His first official emergency contract. 5,000 credits for a simple delivery run. At this rate, they'd be swimming in profit within a year. The jump to hyperspace went smoothly, the wandering Providence slipping into that strange not space where faster-than-light travel happened. Derek set the autopilot and stood up, stretching. "I'm going to grab some food. You want anything?" "Yeah, whatever we've got in the galley." Tommy didn't look up from his engineering readouts. "I'm running some diagnostics on the power distribution system. Want to make sure everything stays optimal." Derek made his way to the galley, which was tucked behind the bridge in a space barely large enough to qualify as a closet. He opened the storage locker where they'd planned to keep food supplies. It was empty. "Tommy," Derek said slowly, "did you stock the galley?" "Was I supposed to do that?" "Did you stock anything?" The comm went silent for a long moment. "I was focused on the engines. I'm noticing a pattern here." Derek checked the other storage compartments, finding them equally bare. "We have no food, no water, no coffee, and I'm willing to bet no hygiene supplies either." "Define hygiene supplies." Derek checked the head. "No soap, no towels, and most critically, no toilet paper." "Damn it, we don't have TP." "Ooh, that seems bad." Derek returned to the bridge, his stomach already growling in protest. "How long until we can stop somewhere?" "Well, we're locked into this hyperspace jump for the next 8 hours. After we make the delivery, Bridger's World has a small trading post. We can stock up there." "Great, so we just have to not eat, drink, or use the bathroom till we get there." Tommy finally looked up from his displays, his expression sheepish. "I have 3 protein bars in my tool bag, and half a thermos of coffee from this morning." Derek sat down heavily. "We are the worst cargo haulers in the galaxy. On the bright side, we have excellent weapons. Tommy, we can't shoot our way out of hunger. Not with that attitude." They split the protein bars, rationing them carefully. The coffee was cold and tasted like motor oil, but it was better than nothing. Derek spent the next few hours reading the delivery contract details and mentally cataloging everything else they'd forgotten to bring aboard. Personal weapons. They had ship-mounted armaments that could reduce a cruiser to scrap, but neither of them had thought to bring a sidearm for personal protection. A med kit. Ironic, considering they were currently hauling medical supplies. Entertainment. 8 hours in hyperspace with nothing to do except stare at displays and contemplate their poor life choices. Clean clothes. Derek was suddenly very aware that he'd been wearing the same jumpsuit for 2 days. "We need to make a list," Derek said finally. Tommy was lying on the deck, staring at the ceiling. "A list of our failures. A list of everything we need to actually function as a crew. We built an amazing ship and forgot that people have to live on it. To be fair, I've never lived on a ship before. I always worked in station-side facilities. I've lived on ships." Derek pulled up a text file on his display and started typing. "But they were always fully stocked because the company handled that. I never thought about it." They spent the next hour compiling their list. Food, water, coffee, toiletries, cleaning supplies, personal weapons, medical supplies, spare clothes, entertainment media, tools for maintenance, spare parts, emergency rations, communication equipment, navigation charts, and about 40 other things that seemed obvious in retrospect. "This is humbling," Tommy said, reviewing the list. "We built a warship and forgot toilet paper." Derek grinned. "We're going to be telling this story for years. Right after we make this delivery and stock up before we starve to death." They dropped out of hyperspace near Bridger's world exactly on target. Tommy's navigation calculations proving flawless. The colony appeared on their sensors, a small settlement on a marginal planet that looked like someone had tried to terraform it and given up halfway through. "Bridger Colony, this is the Wandering Providence with your medical delivery," Derek transmitted, requesting landing clearance and coordinates. The response came back immediately, the controller's voice tight with stress. "Providence, you are cleared for Pad 3. We have critical patients waiting. How fast can you get those supplies unloaded? We'll have them on the ground in 10 minutes." Derek brought the ship down through the thin atmosphere, the landing struts deploying smoothly. "Tommy, get the cargo bay open." "Already on it." They touched down on a cracked ferrocrete pad surrounded by prefabricated buildings that looked like they'd weathered too many storms. A medical team was already rushing toward them, pushing gurneys and carrying emergency equipment. Derek and Tommy worked together to unload the containers, their earlier practice with the straps making the job go faster. The colony's chief medical officer, a harried man named Dr. Raymond Nash, personally supervised the transfer. "You have no idea how grateful we are," Dr. Nash said, checking the seal on one of the antiviral containers. "We've lost 6 people already. These supplies will save dozens." Derek felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with physical exertion. "That's what we're here for, Doc. You need anything else? Just keep doing what you're doing. Fast delivery without the bureaucratic nightmare saved lives today." Dr. Nash shook Derek's hand firmly. "The colony administrator authorized your payment. 5,000 credits transferred now." Derek's comm unit chirped confirmation, their first official payday. They were returning to the ship when Tommy suddenly stopped. "Derek, we've got a problem." "What now?" "The motion sensors are picking something up. 3 contacts coming around the far storage building." Tommy pulled up his portable scanner. "Biosignatures match Grauk physiology." Derek's good mood evaporated. The Grauk were a species of opportunistic scavengers, vaguely insected with too many joints in all the wrong places. They weren't usually violent, but they had a reputation for stealing anything not welded down. 3 Grauk skittered into view, their chitinous bodies catching the sunlight. The lead one made a series of clicks and whistles that Derek's translator unit rendered as, "Human ship. Good ship. You leave now." "We take it." "The ship's not for sale," Derek said calmly, very aware that he had no weapon beyond his fists. "Not buy, take." The Grauk gestured with 2 of its 4 arms. "You small, we many." "You leave," Tommy leaned close to Derek and whispered. "We could go back to the ship and use the weapons. We'd crater half the landing pad and probably kill ourselves in the process. The plasma cannons aren't exactly precision instruments at this range." Derek raised his voice. "Here's a counterproposal. You leave now and I don't call my ship's AI to activate defensive measures." The Grauk made sounds Derek's translator couldn't parse, probably laughter. "Ship dormant. We scan. No AI active." You bluff, Derek smiled. Tommy, activate the dorsal plasma cannons. Don't fire, just let them see the turrets move. Tommy pulled out his portable control unit and entered the commands. On top of the wandering Providence, concealed panels slid open and two massive plasma cannons rose into view, their barrels tracking to center on the Grauk with mechanical precision. The Grauk froze. Now those cannons, Derek said conversationally, have a blast radius of about 30 meters. At this range, they'd vaporize you three and probably damage my ship, which would make me very upset. He took a step forward. So here's the deal. You leave right now and nobody becomes superheated plasma. Sound fair? The Grauk didn't need a second invitation. They scattered, skittering away between buildings with surprising speed. Within seconds, they'd vanished. Tommy lowered the cannons and closed the panels. That was either really brave or really stupid. Maybe both. Derek's hands were shaking slightly now that the adrenaline was fading. But it worked. Now let's hit that trading post and grab the things we forgot. 2 hours later, the wandering Providence lifted off from Bridger's world, her cargo bay now properly stocked with food, water, supplies, and 12 bulk packages of toilet paper. Derek had also purchased 2 pulse pistols and a rifle for good measure, while Tommy had acquired enough coffee to caffeinate a small army. First mission complete, Derek said, settling into the captain's chair as they cleared the atmosphere. We made money, saved lives, and learned we're terrible at basic planning. Tommy raised a bottle of water in a toast. To learning curves, Derek clinked his bottle against Tommy's. And to never forgetting toilet paper again. That's going on the ship's motto plaque. Absolutely not. They jumped back to hyperspace, the wandering Providence carrying them home. Her crew slightly wiser and significantly better stocked than before. Chapter 4, Professional Rivals. Derek and Tommy had completed exactly 11 emergency deliveries before they realized that success was making them enemies. And the most dangerous one had just walked into the same supply depot, where he was collecting medical-grade oxygen canisters. She was Valkorian, which meant she stood nearly 7 feet tall with deep purple skin that seemed to shimmer under the depot lights. 4 arms, 2 legs, and a face that managed to be both alien and unsettlingly expressive. She wore a captain's jacket that had seen better days, and carried herself with the kind of confidence that came from never losing a fight. Her name, according to the patch on her jacket, was Captain Shalnara, and she was staring at Derek like he'd just stolen her lunch money. You, she said, her voice a low rumble that Derek's translator rendered with overtones of barely contained fury. You are the human with the rust bucket who keeps stealing my paying customers. Derek finished securing the last oxygen canister onto his hover pallet and turned to face her with a friendly smile. Derek Holloway, captain of the wandering Providence, and she's not a rust bucket, she just looks like one. Shalnara's 4 arms crossed in a gesture that transcended species. For the past 3 weeks, stations and colonies have been requesting you specifically for their emergency needs. The Meridian Station medical crisis. They asked for you. The Colony 7 vaccine shortage. You again, the Tarsus Ring coolant failure, once again you. She took a step closer, looming over him. I have been running emergency freight for 6 years. I have built a reputation. And then you show up in your flying garbage heap, and suddenly nobody wants to pay my rates anymore. Well, Derek said slowly, we are authorized for emergency response delivery. We don't charge for the transport, just fuel and handling fees. The colonies and stations save a lot of credits that way. Exactly. You are undercutting the entire market. Shalnara gestured wildly with all 4 arms. How am I supposed to compete with someone who pulls supplies from emergency depots and delivers them practically free? That's kind of the point of the emergency response system. To help people in crisis without the cost barrier. It is terrible for business. Derek couldn't help but grin. Sounds like you need to diversify your income streams. I am going to crush you, Shalnara said calmly. Not physically, professionally. I will be faster, more efficient, and I will convince every station master and colony administrator that my premium service is worth the extra credits. Then you will go back to whatever backwater you came from, and I will reclaim my reputation. Derek felt his competitive streak flare to life. Well, good luck with that. We've got a pretty good track record so far. Luck ends, human. Skill is eternal. Shalnara turned and strode toward her ship, which Derek could now see through the depot windows. It was sleek, modern, and looked like it cost more than a small moon. Watch your 6. I will be there, proving I am better than your charity service. Derek watched her leave, then grabbed his comm. Tommy, we might have a problem. So let me get this straight, Tommy said 2 hours later as they jumped to hyperspace for their 12th emergency delivery. A Velcorian captain who's been charging premium rates for emergency freight is now personally invested in destroying us because we're doing it basically for free. That's the situation, he checked. Their navigation. Station Gamma 9 had requested emergency hull plates after a meteor strike. Time-sensitive, authorized by his license, and apparently Shalnara had been trying to negotiate a price with them when they heard the wandering Providence was available. She seemed pretty serious about the whole crushing us thing. I'm weirdly flattered that we're good enough to have rivals now. Their 12th delivery went smoothly. Station Gamma 9's administrator was effusively grateful, especially since Derek only charged them for fuel costs instead of the 15,000 credits Shalnara had quoted. The administrator mentioned that the Velcorian captain had been quite vocal about her displeasure when she heard about the emergency response option. The 13th delivery was mining equipment to an asteroid colony experiencing life support failures. They arrived 4 hours ahead of when Shalnara could have gotten there. The colony manager practically wept with relief at not having to mortgage their operations to pay for emergency delivery. The 14th delivery was the one that really caused problems. A deep space research station needed communication relay components. Their main relay had failed, and they'd sent out a priority distress call. Derek grabbed the authorized equipment from the nearest emergency depot and made the jump, arriving with hours to spare. They were helping the station engineers install the components when Shalnara's courier dropped out of hyperspace. Derek watched through the station's observation window as the sleek Velcorian ship approached, then saw Shalnara's face on the comm screen when the station master informed her the emergency had already been resolved. The humans again, her voice carried through the station's speakers. But I was told you were still negotiating emergency freight rates. We were, Captain Shalnara. But then Captain Holloway arrived with supplies from an emergency depot, the station master said apologetically. He only charged us for fuel and handling. We couldn't justify your fee when help was already here. That human and his charity operation? Tommy, who was standing next to Derek, made an offended noise. We're not a charity. We're an authorized emergency response service. There's a difference. Derek tried to be diplomatic. He really did. He opened a direct comm channel to Shalnara's ship. Hey, no hard feelings, right? We're just doing our job. No hard feelings? Shalnara's image filled the screen, all four arms gesturing wildly. You are destroying the emergency freight market. How am I supposed to make a living when every station can just call you and get free delivery? It's not free, there are fuel costs and handling fees, Derek protested. Pittance. You charge pittance? The program is designed to help people in emergencies without financial burden. The comm cut out. Through the window, Derek watched the swift Talon turn and jump to hyperspace with what seemed like excessive acceleration. I think we made her really mad, Tommy said. She'll get over it. They were halfway through their 15th delivery when Derek and Tommy both came to the same realization at the same time. We forgot to check the landing clearance codes, Derek said, staring at his display. We also forgot to verify the planet's atmospheric restrictions, Tommy added, or what kind of docking equipment they use. And we didn't bring the right adapter cables for their power systems, or confirm if they can even accept our cargo container format. They sat in silence for a moment. We're idiots, Derek said finally. Highly successful idiots, Tommy corrected. But yes, they managed to complete the delivery anyway, mostly through frantic improvisation and borrowing equipment from the planet's port authority. But it took 3 hours longer than it should have, and Derek spent the entire time aware that they'd gotten lucky. Eventually, their luck would run out. We need help, Derek said as they jumped back to their home station. Someone who actually knows what they're doing with logistics. You mean someone who remembers things like landing codes and adapter cables? Someone who can handle supplies, keep us stocked. Coordinate with the emergency depots, maybe provide security when we're planet-side. Derek pulled up their financial records. Between the fuel reimbursements and the handling fees, they were making decent money. We can afford a third crew member now. What kind of person are we looking for? Derek thought about it. Someone organized, someone who's good with weapons. Someone who won't judge us too harshly for building a warship and forgetting toilet paper. That's a very specific skill set. We're very specific idiots. The 16th delivery was where it finally went sideways. Medical supplies to a frontier colony that had been hit by a viral outbreak. The colony's distress call had gone out to multiple sources, and both Derek and Shalnara had responded. Derek because it was an authorized emergency under his license. Shalnara because she was trying to prove her premium service could beat him. They dropped out of hyperspace at almost the same moment, their ships appearing in the system within seconds of each other. "Oh no," Tommy said. Shalnara's voice crackled over the comm. "Finally. A direct competition. Let us see who reaches the colony first, human. Then they can decide if your discount service is truly better than professional freight." "This isn't a race," Derek protested. "The colony needs help. Both of us responding is actually better for them. Everything is a race. First ship to land gets the gratitude and the future business. Again, not how this works. Race you anyway, human." The swift Talon shot forward, heading for the colony at impressive speed. Derek swore and pushed the wandering Providence's engines to full, the fusion drives roaring to life. They streaked through space neck and neck. Two ships that had no business being comparable in performance, somehow matching each other move for move. The swift Talon was faster in straight-line speed, but the wandering Providence had better maneuvering, and Derek used it ruthlessly to cut optimal paths through the planet's orbital traffic. "She's trying to box us out," Tommy called from engineering. "Cutting across our approach vector. Not happening." Derek threw the ship into a roll that would have made a fighter pilot nervous, slipping under the swift Talon's hull with meters to spare. They hit atmosphere first, heat shields glowing, as they made an aggressive entry that had both of them pressed back in their seats. The colony's landing control was screaming at them about safety regulations and approach speeds, but Derek tuned it out. He could see the landing pad, could see Shalnara's ship right behind them, could feel the competition burning in his veins despite knowing this was ridiculous. They touched down first by exactly 3 seconds. Derek had the cargo bay open before the landing struts fully compressed, and he and Tommy were loading medical containers onto hover pallets with desperate speed. The swift Talon landed beside them, and Shalnara emerged from her ship at a dead run, her own cargo already loaded. Then everything went wrong in the most embarrassing way possible. Derek's hover pallet, overloaded with containers they'd hastily stacked, hit a crack in the ferrocrete pad. The whole thing tipped, containers sliding off and tumbling directly into Shalnara's path. She tried to dodge, her forearms windmilling, but the laws of physics were unforgiving. She tripped over a container marked fragile, went airborne, and landed in a puddle of what appeared to be yesterday's rain mixed with landing pad runoff. Her own hover pallet, suddenly without guidance, careened sideways and crashed into a fuel station support pillar. Containers exploded open, showering the area with bandages that caught the wind and went flying like the world's most useless confetti. Derek and Tommy froze, watching the disaster unfold. Shalnara rose slowly from the puddle, covered in mud and fury. Her jacket was ruined, her dignity was in tatters, and she was staring at Derek with an expression that promised future violence. "I am so sorry," Derek started. "Save it, human," Shalnara's voice was ice. "This is not over, this will never be over. You have made a powerful enemy today." She stalked back to her ship, trailing mud and bandages, while Derek and Tommy carefully delivered their medical supplies to the colony's doctor. "We should probably hire that security person soon," Tommy said quietly. "Yeah," Derek agreed, watching the swift Talon lift off with enough thrust to crack the ferrocrete. "I think that's a really good idea." Chapter 5, The Interview Process. Derek looked down at himself and realized he'd been running a starship operation while dressed like a teenager who'd slept in his clothes for 3 days. This revelation struck him precisely when he realized they were going to be interviewing for a new crew member. "We need uniforms," Derek said, staring at his reflection in the station's bathroom mirror. His jumpsuit had grease stains, coffee stains, and at least one stain he couldn't identify. Tommy looked up from washing his hands, his own jumpsuit in similar condition. "Like actual professional uniforms? At minimum, shirts, matching shirts. With our ship's name on them." Derek gestured at his disheveled appearance. "We're meeting potential crew members today. We look like we crawled out of a scrap heap. We kind of did. That's not the point. The point is we're a legitimate operation making legitimate money, and we should look like we know what we're doing." Tommy dried his hands and nodded slowly. "You know what? You're right. Let's go buy shirts." 2 hours later, they stood in the ship's galley wearing matching black shirts with the wandering Providence logo that Tommy had designed on his data tablet. The logo featured a stylized ship that looked vaguely like their vessel if someone squinted, with the words fast, reliable, probably legal underneath. "I'm not sure about that tagline," Derek said. "It's accurate. Everything we do is probably legal. We just haven't checked all the regulations." Tommy admired his shirt in the reflective surface of a storage locker. "Besides, it's funny. People remember funny. People also remember professional. Then they'd hire someone else. We're the funny professionals. It's our brand now." Derek couldn't argue with that logic, mostly because their first interview candidate was walking up the boarding ramp and he didn't have time to order new shirts. The first candidate was a human named Robert Anderson, who had impressive credentials in logistics and supply. He sat in the galley looking extremely professional in an actual business suit, which made Derek feel even more conscious of his novelty t-shirt. "So," Robert said, reviewing his data tablet, "you need someone to handle supply coordination, equipment maintenance, and security operations." "That's correct," Derek confirmed. "We've been handling it ourselves, but we've discovered we're not very good at remembering things like landing clearance codes or toilet paper." Robert looked up. "Toilet paper? It was a learning experience," Tommy interjected. "We're much better now. We have at least 12 backup packages." "I see," Robert made a note on his tablet. "And the security aspect. You mentioned occasional hostile encounters." "We've got excellent defensive capabilities," Derek said. "But we could use someone trained in personal combat for planetside operations, just in case. I have standard security certification, level 2 combat training. Proficient with standard pulse weapons." Robert scrolled through his credentials. "However, I do have some concerns about the position." "What concerns?" "Your emergency response delivery license means you're operating in crisis situations. High stress, potentially dangerous, irregular hours." Robert set down his tablet. "I'm looking for something more stable. Regular routes, predictable income, low risk." Derek exchanged a glance with Tommy. "Then this probably isn't the right fit. We had a firefight with pirates in our first week." "Yes, I saw that in your service record. That's exactly what concerns me." Robert stood and offered his hand. "Thank you for your time, but I don't think this position aligns with my career goals." After Robert left, Tommy leaned back in his chair. That was disappointing. He wanted boring. "We're definitely not boring." The second candidate was a Grauk named Tactor, who spent the entire interview trying to figure out if any of the ship's components were removable and valuable. Derek politely showed him out, after catching him measuring the reactor with a scanner. The third candidate was perfect on paper, but took one look at the ship's exterior and asked if they were being pranked by a reality show. The fourth candidate made it halfway through the interview before admitting she was terrified of space travel and had only applied because her mother told her to. By the fifth interview, Derek was seriously considering just teaching a cleaning robot to shoot a gun. Then Curacin walked up the boarding ramp. She was Linari, a species Derek had heard of but never met in person. She stood about 6.5 feet tall, with an elegant build that reminded him of old Earth legends about elves. If elves had 3 eyes arranged in a triangle pattern on their face, and 2 delicate antennae that curved back from their forehead. Her skin had a faint silvery blue tone that seemed to shift in the light, and her 3 eyes were completely black, like pools of ink. What really caught Derek's attention were her hands. Each had 7 fingers of varying lengths, moving with an fluid grace that suggested incredible dexterity. "Captain Holloway?" Her voice was melodic, translated smoothly by the universal comm system. "I'm Curacin. I'm here about the crew position. Please come in." Derek gestured to the galley, trying not to stare at the way her antennae tracked subtle air movements. "Can I get you anything?" "Water, coffee." "We have 12 packages of toilet paper if you need any." "I'm good, thank you." Curacin settled into the chair with natural grace, her multiple fingers folding together in a way that seemed impossible. "I've reviewed your service record. 16 emergency deliveries in 3 weeks, perfect success rate, 1 pirate encounter resolved with minimal damage." "Impressive for a new operation." Tommy leaned forward. "You've done your homework." "I always research potential employers. It saved me considerable trouble." One of her antennae twitched slightly. "I have 8 years of experience in supply coordination, including 3 years on emergency response vessels. I'm certified in personal combat with both energy and projectile weapons." I have advanced technical training in ship maintenance and repair systems. Derek felt hope stirring for the first time all day. That's exactly what we need. What's your experience with inventory management? I use a matrix system that tracks supplies, projects usage rates, and automatically generates requisition orders before you run out of critical items. Curacin pulled up a holographic display from her data tablet, showing an intricate organizational chart. I can integrate with your ship systems to monitor everything from food supplies to ammunition counts to maintenance schedules. That's beautiful, Tommy said reverently. I also have experience with the bureaucratic requirements for emergency response operations. Fuel reimbursement forms, handling fee documentation, emergency depot authorizations. Her three eyes focused on Derek with unsettling intensity. I noticed your last 3 depot withdrawals were missing proper chain of custody documentation. That could cause problems during audits. Derek blinked. We're supposed to document chain of custody? For controlled medical supplies and hazardous materials, yes, I can handle that going forward. You're hired, Derek said immediately. Captain, there's something I need to disclose first. Curacin's antennae drooped slightly, a gesture Derek instinctively read as distress. I have a condition. Your species calls it Tourette's syndrome, though the Linari version manifests slightly differently. Tommy tilted his head. How does it manifest? Verbal and physical tics. Uncontrolled vocalizations, sudden movements, sometimes at inopportune moments. Curacin's hands flexed, all 7 fingers on each hand moving independently. It's manageable with medication, but stress can trigger episodes. Many crews consider it a liability and refuse to hire me because of it. Derek thought about the time he'd forgotten toilet paper, about showing up to emergencies without landing clearance codes, about accidentally humiliating a rival captain by dumping medical supplies on her. Curacin, we once forgot to bring food on an 8-hour journey. Tommy built weapons systems before remembering we'd need cargo straps. I don't think we're in a position to judge anyone for being less than perfect. The captain makes an excellent point, Tommy added. Also, you clearly know what you're doing, which puts you ahead of us in at least 3 categories. Curacin's antennae lifted, brightening visibly. You're serious. You'll hire me despite the condition. If you can keep us from forgetting critical supplies and running afoul of depot regulations. You could have tics that make you breakdance randomly and we'd still hire you. Derek stood and offered his hand. Welcome to the crew of the Wandering Providence, Curacin. When can you start? She stood as well, reaching out with one hand while her other hand unconsciously tapped a rapid rhythm against her leg. I can move my belongings aboard today. I'll need access to your inventory systems and emergency depot credentials. Her right antenna twitched sharply. Also, fair warning, I just had a tic. They're more frequent when I'm nervous. Understandable, this is a big career move. Derek shook her hand, fascinated by how her 7 fingers wrapped around his. Tommy will show you to the crew quarters and get you set up with system access. We've got a delivery tomorrow morning, so you'll get to see how we operate. One question, Curacin said as Tommy led her toward the crew section. The shirt slogan, probably legal. Is that accurate? Completely, Tommy assured her. We follow about 80% of regulations, and the other 20% we're not sure apply to us. That's horrifying and also refreshing. Curacin's left hand made a sudden grabbing motion at nothing, another tic. Most operations pretend to be completely compliant. I appreciate the honesty. That evening, Derek found Curacin in the cargo bay, her portable terminal connected to the ship's systems while she cataloged their current supplies. Her hands moved in a blur across multiple displays, 7 fingers on each hand allowing her to input data faster than Derek could follow. How's the inventory looking? Derek asked. Disorganized but functional. You have adequate supplies for routine operations, but no emergency reserves beyond food and toilet paper. One of her antennae twitched. You're low on medical supplies, you have only 3 spare power couplings when you should have 10, and your ammunition stores are poorly secured. We haven't needed ammunition yet. The pirates ran away before we had to use the missiles. Murphy's Law states that you'll need ammunition the moment you don't have it properly stored. Curacin pulled up a requisition list. I'm ordering supplies from 3 different suppliers. We should have everything within 2 days. Derek watched her work, impressed by the efficiency. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Why did you want this job? You're clearly overqualified. You could work for a major shipping corporation making 3 times what we're paying. Curacin stopped typing, her three eyes turning to focus on him. I worked for major corporations for 5 years. They tolerated my condition right up until it became inconvenient. Then they found reasons to move me to less visible positions. Her left hand made a sharp gesture, a tick that she smoothly incorporated into reaching for her water bottle. Small crews are different. You either function as a team or you fail. There's no room for corporate politics or discrimination. You need me to do a job, and I need to be valued for doing it well. You'll be valued here, Derek said firmly. We're too disorganized not to value someone who knows what they're doing. I noticed. Curacin's expression, alien as it was, managed to convey amusement. Your ship is a fascinating contradiction. Military-grade weapons on a civilian hauler, premium engines in a hull that looks abandoned, and 2 crew members who forgot toilet paper but remembered to install Titan-class shields. We have our priorities. They're just not always the right priorities. That's why you need me. She turned back to her displays. Tomorrow's delivery is medical supplies to Harvest Station. They're experiencing a bacterial outbreak in their water recycling system. I've already confirmed our depot authorization, plotted the optimal route, checked the station's landing requirements, and verified we have the correct adapter cables for their power grid. Derek felt a wave of relief so intense it was almost physical. Curacin, I think you're going to work out perfectly. Let's see if you still think that when I have an episode during a crucial moment. Her right antenna twitched 3 times in rapid succession. Fair warning, I have a tendency to shout random words when startled. We'll deal with it, we're adaptable. Derek headed for the door, then paused. Also, welcome to the crew. Officially, thank you, Captain. Curacin's 3 eyes watched him leave. They'd found their 3rd crew member, and for the first time since starting this venture, he felt like they might actually know what they were doing. Chapter 6, Baptism by Fire. Derek had learned that hiring Curacin was the smartest thing he had done for the ship. 2 weeks had passed since she joined the crew, and the difference was staggering. They'd completed 5 more emergency deliveries, without a single forgotten item. Missed clearance code or embarrassing supply shortage. The ship ran like an actual professional operation, instead of 2 guys making it up as they went along. Derek stood on the bridge watching Curacin coordinate their approach to the emergency depot. Her 7-fingered hands dancing across 3 different displays, while her antennae tracked the subtle vibrations of the ship's systems. She'd integrated herself into the wandering Providence so completely that Derek couldn't remember how they'd functioned without her. Depot authorization confirmed, Curacin reported, her 3 black eyes focused on the screens. Medical supplies loaded and secured, jump calculations complete. We're ready for departure in 4 minutes. Her left hand made a sudden tapping gesture against the console, a tick that she'd learned to incorporate smoothly into her workflow. You're a miracle worker, Tommy said from the engineering station. You know that, right? I'm efficient, there's a difference. Curacin pulled up the inventory readout. Also, we're down to 8 spare power couplings. I'm ordering more for delivery to our home station. See, we would have just run out of power couplings and then acted surprised when we needed them, Derek said. This is so much better. The bar you're setting is impressively low, Captain, Tommy laughed. She's got you there, but seriously, Curacin, you've transformed this operation. We're actually professional now. Probably professional, Curacin corrected, gesturing at Derek's shirt with its tagline. The branding suggests otherwise. The branding is ironic. Is it, though? Her right antenna twitched twice. Because I've reviewed your maintenance logs, and at least 30% of your repairs violate manufacturer specifications. But they work better our way, Tommy protested. I didn't say I disapproved. I'm just noting that probable legality is accurate. Curacin's hands moved across the controls. Jump ready. Departing in 90 seconds. Derek settled into the captain's chair, marveling at how smoothly everything ran now. Curacin had implemented systems, procedures, checklists. She'd color-coded the supply lockers. She'd programmed automatic inventory alerts. She'd even organized the tool storage and engineering, which had made Tommy cry actual tears of joy. She still had her occasional tics, which ranged from hand gestures to sudden vocalizations. Yesterday, she'd shouted pancakes in the middle of a tense docking procedure, which had startled Derek so badly he'd nearly crashed into the station. But they'd adapted. They'd learned to recognize the warning signs, and Curacin had learned to warn them when stress was triggering worse episodes. But he could care less. She made them efficient and a better overall emergency hauling team. Jump initiated, Curacin announced. The wandering Providence slipped into hyperspace smoothly. ETA to destination, 6 hours. The emergency call had come through 3 hours into their journey. Outpost Blackstone, a small mining installation on the edge of civilized space, was experiencing increased raider attacks. Their security forces were running critically low on ammunition and had put out an emergency request for resupply. Do we have time to make this side trip and still deliver those medical supplies? Derek questioned. Curacin ran the calculations. We do, but we got to be quick. Okay then, well this one's different from our usual runs, Derek said, reviewing the mission parameters. Outpost Blackstone is in a hot zone, active hostile presence. Curacin pulled up tactical data on the main display. Raiders have hit them 4 times in the past 2 weeks. Kurathi strike teams, probably the same group we encountered in our first week. They're targeting the mining operations, trying to force the outpost to pay protection money. Can we handle it? Tommy asked. The outpost needs the ammunition, or they won't be able to defend themselves, Derek said. We're authorized to retrieve munitions from the emergency depot and deliver them. The question is whether we want to fly into an active combat zone. We have excellent shields and weapons, Tommy pointed out, and we're fast. We could be in and out before the raiders even know we're there. Curacin's 3 eyes focused on Derek. Captain's decision. But the outpost has 63 civilians and 22 security personnel. If we don't deliver, those people are defenseless. Derek thought about it for exactly 5 seconds. We're doing it. Curacin, plot a course to the munitions depot. Tommy, prep the weapons systems just in case. Let's go save some people. The munitions facility required additional security clearances that Curacin handled with practiced efficiency. They loaded 12 heavy containers of ammunition, pulse rifle power cells, and grenade launchers into the cargo bay. Curacin secured everything with redundant strapping and magnetic clamps, her 7-fingered hands making the work go 3 times faster than when Derek and Tommy had fumbled through it. I'm also arming us, Curacin announced, pulling 3 pulse rifles from the weapons locker she'd installed last week. Standard security protocol for high-risk deliveries. Derek took the rifle she offered, checking the charge automatically. You expecting trouble? I'm expecting the possibility of trouble. That's different. She slung her own rifle across her back with practiced ease. I've done deliveries to contested zones before. Sometimes raiders wait at the destination hoping to steal the supplies. Better to have weapons and not need them. Her left hand twitched, tapping out a rhythm against her leg. Sorry. I'm a bit nervous about this one. Tommy accepted his rifle and frowned at the controls. I've never actually fired one of these. Point the business end at the bad guys, squeeze the trigger, try not to shoot your own feet. Curacin demonstrated the basic grip. If shooting starts, stay behind cover and let me handle the tactical situation. You have combat experience? 3 years on emergency response ships, remember. We got shot at regularly. Her 3 eyes somehow managed to convey grim amusement. I'm quite good at not dying. They dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Outpost Blackstone's system and immediately knew something was wrong. The outpost's comm channels were flooded with distress signals and weapons fire. Multiple contacts, Curacin reported, her hands flying across the tactical display. 6 Kurathi raiders in orbit. They're bombarding the outpost's shields. Derek pushed the engines to full, the wandering Providence accelerating toward the planet. Can we slip past them? Not unnoticed. They'll see us coming. Curacin armed the weapon systems. Recommend we prepare for engagement. Let's try talking first. Derek opened a general comm channel. Kurathi vessels, this is Captain Derek Holloway of the Wandering Providence. We're on an emergency medical mission. We're not looking for a fight. The response was immediate and hostile. Human ship will turn back or be destroyed. This outpost belongs to the Kurathi now. See, that's not going to work for me, Derek said pleasantly. Because those people down there need supplies, and I'm authorized to deliver them. So we're going down there whether you like it or not. 3 of the Kurathi ships broke orbit and moved to intercept. I tried diplomacy, Derek said, throwing the ship into evasive maneuvers. Tommy, how are our shields? Fully charged and ready. Tommy routed additional power from the engines. Weapons hot. The Kurathi ships opened fire, plasma bolts streaking through space. Derek jinked the Wandering Providence hard to port. the shots splashing harmlessly against their shields. He returned fire with the dorsal plasma cannons, catching one raider with a direct hit that cored through their engines. "One down," Curacin called out. "Two more closing from starboard." Derek rolled the ship, bringing the ventral cannons to bear. The shots went wide, and he cursed as return fire hammered their shields. "Shield status, 92%. We can take a lot more punishment than they can dish out." Tommy's voice was tight with adrenaline. "Firing missiles." 6 Lancer 5 missiles launched from the port tubes, corkscrewing through space toward the pursuing raiders. Point defense fire took out 3, but the other 3 found their marks. 2 Curathi ships exploded in brilliant fireballs, and the third tumbled away trailing atmosphere. "Nice shooting." Derek pushed toward the planet, the remaining Curathi ships breaking off their pursuit. "They're running. Let's get planetside before they regroup." Outpost Blackstone's landing pad was a war zone. Smoke billowed from damaged buildings, and Derek could see security forces exchanging fire with Curathi ground troops who'd made landing on the outpost's perimeter. "This is worse than I expected," Tommy said quietly. "We're committed now." Derek brought the ship down hard, the landing struts compressing with the force of the impact. "Curacin, get the cargo bay open. We need to unload fast." They rushed down the ramp into chaos. The outpost security chief, a grizzled woman named Captain Patricia Hayes, was directing defensive positions from behind an overturned cargo container. "You're the emergency delivery," Hayes shouted over the weapon's fire. "About damn time. Where do you want the ammunition?" Derek yelled back. "Secondary armory, 50 meters that way." Hayes pointed toward a squat building, then ducked as plasma fire scorched the air above her head. "We've got a squad pinned down between here and there. Can't get through to resupply them?" Derek looked at Tommy, then at Curacin. Their new crew member was checking her rifle with calm efficiency, her 3 eyes tracking the battle with tactical precision. "We'll get it through," Derek said. "Curacin, can you cover us?" "Captain, I can do better than cover you." She pulled 2 extra power cells from her belt. "I can clear the path. Stay behind me and bring the ammunition." Before Derek could protest, Curacin was moving. She flowed across the battlefield like water, her tall frame somehow finding cover where none seemed to exist. A Curathi raider popped up from behind a wall, and Curacin's rifle spoke once, the shot taking the alien center mass. She rolled behind a cargo crate, came up firing, and dropped 2 more raiders with shots that seemed impossible at that distance. "Is she doing martial arts while shooting?" Tommy asked in disbelief. A Curathi charged from the left, weapon raised. Curacin spun, her legs sweeping up in a kick that knocked the rifle away, then followed through with a palm strike from her 7-fingered hand that sent the alien sprawling. She grabbed her rifle from where it hung on its sling and fired in one smooth motion. "I think we hired a Power Ranger," Derek said, watching Curacin dispatch 3 more raiders with a combination of precise shooting and acrobatic combat moves that shouldn't have been possible for someone that tall. "That's amazing," Tommy yelled. "That's absolutely amazing." Curacin cleared the path to the armory in under 2 minutes, leaving a trail of unconscious or dead raiders behind her. She took up a position by the armory door, covering Derek and Tommy as they hauled the ammunition containers inside. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Derek gasped, setting down the last container. "Told you I had combat experience." Curacin's left antenna twitched rapidly. "Also, adrenaline suppresses my tics temporarily, very convenient in firefights." She fired twice more, dropping a raider trying to flank their position. "We should get back to the ship. More Curathi are incoming." They made it back to the wandering Providence just as the remaining Curathi ships returned from orbit. Derek slammed the cargo bay door and hit the lift thrusters, the ship rising into the air as plasma fire scorched the landing pad beneath them. "Shields up," Derek called. "Tommy, give me everything the engines have." "Already on it." Tommy diverted power, the fusion drives roaring to life. They shot upward through the atmosphere, 3 Curathi ships in pursuit. The space battle was everything the first engagement hadn't been. The Curathi were angry now, coordinating their attacks, hitting the wandering Providence from multiple angles. Derek threw the ship into a spiral, trying to present a difficult target while return fire from their weapons carved through the vacuum. "Shields at 70%, Tommy reported. "These guys hit harder than the first group." "Railgun ready," Curacin announced from her position at the weapons console. "Lead target locked." "Fire," The railgun spoke, a hypersonic round that punched through the lead Kurathi ship's shields and hull like they were paper. The ship exploded, the blast catching one of its wingmates and sending it tumbling away disabled. "One left!" Derek lined up the plasma cannons. "Let's finish this." The final Kurathi ship tried to run, but the wandering Providence was faster. Derek closed the distance, and Tommy fired a full volley from the ventral cannons. The shots blew through the Raider's engines, leaving it dead in space. Silence settled over the bridge, broken only by the cooling sounds of overworked systems and their own heavy breathing. "Status report," Derek said finally. "Shields at 48%, hull integrity at 100%, no critical damage." Tommy ran his hands through his hair. "We survived. Holy hell, we survived. All crew members uninjured." Curacin set down her rifle, her hands shaking slightly now that the adrenaline was fading. "That was more intense than I expected." Derek started laughing. He couldn't help it. The stress, the fear, the absolute insanity of what they'd just done all came pouring out in helpless laughter. "We just fought off 6 Kurathi ships and a ground assault to deliver ammunition. We're either the bravest or stupidest crew in space." "Probably both," Tommy said, starting to laugh as well. "Definitely both." Curacin looked at them like they'd lost their minds. Then her 3 eyes crinkled in what Derek had learned was her version of a smile. "You humans are insane. I think I'm going to like it here." Curacin checked the weapon systems, powering them down. "Captain, I'm putting in a requisition for more ammunition. After that display, we're going to need it." "Approved. Also, you're terrifying in a fight. I had no idea." Derek started spinning up the jump drives. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" "Linari combat training is mandatory. We're a peaceful species, but we're not helpless." She flexed her 7 fingers on each hand. "The extra dexterity helps with both shooting and hand-to-hand combat. Plus, raiders underestimate me because I'm thin. Their mistake." "Note to self," Tommy said. "Never anger Curacin. Smart policy." She pulled up the mission report forms. "I'll file the paperwork with the Emergency Response Authority." That was definitely outside normal operational parameters. Derek watched the stars stretch into lines as they jumped to hyperspace, taking them to their original destination. They'd survived their first real combat operation. They delivered critical supplies under fire. And they'd discovered their mild-mannered supply coordinator was secretly a tactical genius with the combat skills of an action hero. "Best crew in space," Derek said quietly. "Probably." "Definitely," Tommy corrected. "After today, definitely." Curacin's antennae tilted in what Derek recognized as pleasure. "I'll add that to the ship's motto. Fast, reliable, probably legal, definitely the best." "That's too long for a shirt." "Then we'll get bigger shirts, Captain."